The luxury dealership went silent the moment Ethan Parker stepped out of his rusty pickup truck with his little daughter beside him. Salesmen smirked. Customers stared. One manager coldly told him, "This showroom isn't for people like you." Humiliated, Ethan quietly picked up his daughter's backpack and walked toward the exit. Then a black executive car screeched to a stop outside. The dealership's CEO, Victoria Hale, stepped out and froze when she saw the battered pickup in the parking lot. Her face went pale, because 10 years earlier, that exact truck had once saved her life. And the man they had just insulted was the hero nobody recognized. Ethan Parker was the kind of man the world had a habit of overlooking. At 38, he had the hands of someone who had worked hard since the day he was old enough to hold a wrench. Callous palms, knuckles permanently stained with grease, no matter how long he scrubbed. He worked as a mechanic at a modest garage on the east side of the city. The kind of place where the coffee maker was older than half the staff and the fluorescent light in the break room had been flickering for 3 years without anyone replacing it. He never complained. Complaining required energy he preferred to spend elsewhere. He spent it on Lily. Lily was 8 years old, with her mother's eyes and her father's stubbornness. A combination that made her the most lovable and occasionally exhausting creature Ethan had ever encountered. She had a gap between her front teeth and a laugh that started somewhere deep in her belly and arrived without warning, like a summer storm. She was, without question, the best thing Ethan had left. The truck he drove was a 1994 Ford F-150. Faded red, the way autumn leaves go brown before they fall. Not with elegance, but with the quiet resignation of something that had simply endured. The front bumper carried a dent from a parking lot accident in 2011. The passenger side mirror was held together with electrical tape and hope. On cold mornings, it started only after the third try. In summer, the air conditioning produced something closer to mild disappointment than actual cool air. But Ethan kept it running. He always kept it running. It was the last thing he and Sarah had bought together back when they were young and slightly reckless and believed that a reliable truck was the foundation of a solid life. They weren't wrong. They were just not given enough time to prove it. Sarah had been gone for 3 years now. Pancreatic cancer. The kind of illness that doesn't ask permission and doesn't leave room for negotiation. She was 34 when she was diagnosed. 35 when she died. And Ethan had been holding everything together ever since. The garage shifts. The school pickups. The bedtime stories. The grocery runs. The parent-teacher conferences. The nightmares Lily still had sometimes. The mornings when neither of them felt like getting out of bed, but got out anyway. That was what love looked like from the inside. Not romantic. Not cinematic. Just relentless. He had been saving for an SUV for 2 years, setting aside small amounts every week from his paycheck. $40 here. $60 there. Whatever the week allowed after groceries, utilities, and the occasional school field trip fee. He skipped lunch specials at the diner. Drove past movie theaters without stopping. Canceled the streaming service when the price went up. Not for himself. For Lily. Because the highway felt different now than it had before Sarah died. Like the road itself had become a place where terrible things could happen without warning. And he needed to know his daughter was surrounded by something built to protect her. He had done the math obsessively. There was a spreadsheet on his phone. Precise. Color-coded. Updated every Sunday morning over coffee. The numbers were finally right. He had been ready for 3 weeks, but he waited for a Saturday when the weather was clear and Lily was in a good mood. Because he wanted the day to feel like what it was. A good day. A day they had worked toward together. Even if Lily didn't know all the details of the working. He had chosen the dealership carefully. Reading ratings late at night. Comparing crash test results. Studying safety scores and reviews from parents. When he told Lily about the plan on a Tuesday morning, she clapped her hands and announced she wanted one, the color of blueberries. It made him laugh for the first time in a week. They dressed up a little that Saturday. Lily wore the yellow cardigan that still smelled faintly like the detergent Sarah used to buy. Ethan wore the clean collared shirt he saved for special occasions. They drove across town in the old pickup, the engine grumbling at every red light. Just after 10 in the morning, they pulled into the parking lot of the most prestigious dealership in the city. The building was enormous. Glass and steel and polished surfaces catching the autumn sunlight like a hall of mirrors. Inside, the cars gleamed beneath recessed lighting as though they were sacred objects displayed inside a cathedral. Ethan turned off the engine. For a moment, He and Lily simply sat there looking at the building. Then she asked, "Daddy, do they have blueberry ones?" He smiled softly. "Let's go find out." The moment they stepped out of the truck, everything shifted. Subtle at first, the kind of shift you feel before you can explain it. A salesman near the entrance glanced at the pickup, then at Ethan, then at Lily. His expression settled into something carefully neutral that somehow said more than open contempt ever could. Another salesman looked over from a conversation with a wealthy couple in matching cashmere coats and immediately decided not to look again. Two women near the front display vehicle leaned toward each other and whispered something that ended in a quiet shared smile. Lily didn't notice. She walked through the showroom with wide eyes, amazed by everything. Ethan noticed. He always noticed. He had spent years learning how to carry moments like these quietly, folding them away somewhere they couldn't reach him while he was busy being a father. He tried to catch someone's eye. He smiled. He waited. Nobody came. A wealthy family received immediate assistance. A man wearing a watch worth more than Ethan's monthly rent was greeted with warm handshakes and escorted to the premium floor. Ethan waited 11 minutes by the clock on the far wall. Then Lily tugged gently on his sleeve. "Daddy, that man keeps looking at us." She meant the salesman near the velvet rope, standing stiffly in a pressed suit, watching them like they were a problem waiting to become an incident. Then Ethan heard someone nearby say, not quite quietly enough, "You know how it is. Some people just come in here to take pictures." Lily heard it too. He saw the way her face changed, the brightness in her eyes dimming for just a second, like a lamp with a loose connection. That was the moment the manager appeared. His name tag read Raymond. He walked toward Ethan with the confident posture of a man who believed the world improved simply because he occupied it. "Sir," Raymond said in a low voice, "I think there may be some confusion. Our vehicles here begin at $65,000. We also have pre-owned locations across town that might be a better fit for what you're looking for." Ethan looked at him steadily. No anger in his eyes. Only a tired kind of patience. "I'm not confused," Ethan said quietly. "I've been saving for this for 2 years. I want to buy a family SUV. I have the money." Raymond smiled, but it never reached his eyes. "Sir, these vehicles aren't really." "Aren't really what?" Ethan asked softly. Raymond paused. He was a man practiced in saying cruel things indirectly. He looked at Ethan's shirt, at his worn boots, at the battered red pickup outside. Then he said, in the tone of someone offering charity, "These vehicles cost more than most people's homes." Lily's hand found Ethan's immediately. She held it with both of hers, the way she did when she was scared but trying not to show it. Ethan felt her grip tighten. He didn't look down at her. If he looked at her right then, he might lose the composure he was fighting to hold, and he could not let her see him break. He opened his mouth, closed it again, trying to find words that were dignified without sounding desperate, firm without sounding angry, human without sounding vulnerable. But Raymond had already turned slightly, gesturing casually toward the exit. "There's a lovely pre-owned lot on Whitmore Avenue," he said. "I think that might be more your speed." A woman nearby lowered her eyes. A man pretended to study a brochure. One younger customer, uncomfortable enough with what he was witnessing, quietly pulled out his phone and began recording. Ethan simply picked up Lily's backpack from the floor, held out his hand, and she took it without speaking. Together, they walked toward the exit with the quiet dignity of people who had survived worse things and knew it. His jaw was tight, his eyes dry. He stared only at the door, nothing else. They were 3 steps away when the sound of brakes cut sharply through the showroom. Every head turned toward the glass entrance. A black executive car had stopped outside. Not parked. Stopped. Like the driver had forgotten everything else the moment they saw something unexpected. A woman stepped out. Victoria Hale, 35 years old. Lean, precise, dressed in a charcoal blazer over a silk blouse the color of a winter sky. She carried herself with the kind of stillness that made rooms quieter the moment she entered them. Not because she demanded attention, because attention arrived naturally around her. She was the CEO of Hale Automotive Group, owner of this dealership and 11 others across the state. And she visited locations without warning. That was intentional. She believed the truest version of any business was the version people showed when they thought nobody important was watching. She took 3 steps through the parking lot before stopping completely. The old red pickup, the dented bumper, the electrical tape on the mirror. Victoria stared at it without moving. She had not seen that truck in 10 years. But she remembered it instantly. Her driver, Marcus, said nothing. He had worked with her long enough to recognize the difference between her thinking silences and her remembering silences. This was the second kind. Slowly, Victoria stepped forward and rested her hand against the hood. The metal was warm from the engine. And suddenly the memory hit her all at once. 10 years earlier, a brutal January storm, a stretch of highway outside the city. She had been 25 and newly promoted within her father's company, driving home alone after a client meeting. Snow hammered the roads in thick, white sheets. She had told herself the conditions were manageable because she needed them to be manageable. Then the car hit ice. Everything happened at once. The skid, the embankment, the impact against the birch trees, the violent explosion of airbags, the ringing in her ears, smoke rising from beneath the hood, the seat belt digging into her shoulder. She remembered trying the door. Locked. The window controls dead. Smoke thickening around her. Then footsteps above the embankment. Fast. Purposeful. A voice through shattered glass. I'm going to get you out. Don't move your neck. Can you hear me? She had answered yes. The man smashed the corner of the window cleanly, covered the broken glass with his jacket, reached inside, unlocked the door, and pulled her free. He carried her 20 feet up the snowy embankment before the engine erupted into flames behind them. She remembered sitting in the snow, wrapped in his coat, shaking violently while he asked if she could feel her feet. She remembered the blood running from cuts on his hand. And she remembered his truck. This truck. Its hazard lights blinking orange through the storm. She had tried to find him afterward. Sent a letter. But it had come back undelivered. Eventually life had moved forward. But the guilt never fully disappeared. Now here he was, walking out of her dealership with his daughter after being humiliated. Victoria straightened and looked through the showroom glass. She saw Ethan holding Lily's hand, saw the stiffness in his shoulders, the quiet effort it took for him to keep himself together. Then she walked through the doors. Her voice, when she spoke, was calm and absolute. Whose truck is in the parking lot? The room froze. Nobody answered immediately. Raymond stepped forward, already nervous. Miss Hale, we weren't expecting. Whose truck is it? She repeated. Not louder, just slower. Lily turned around first. Children often sense changes in a room before adults admit they exist. Victoria looked past her directly at Ethan. Recognition crossed her face. Not polite recognition. Something deeper. The recognition of someone finally standing in front of a debt they never repaid. Are you Ethan Parker? She asked. The name landed heavily in the room. Ethan stared at her. Then memory surfaced. A snowy embankment. Smoke. Firelight. A terrified woman wrapped in his jacket. Victoria, he said quietly. She nodded once, then turned to Raymond. Tell me what happened here today. Raymond hesitated. The younger customer with the phone stepped forward first. He filmed it, Lily said softly. The young man handed over the phone. Victoria watched the video in complete silence. Once. Then she handed it back. She looked at Raymond for a very long moment. Lock the showroom, she said. No new customers for the next hour. Raymond's face drained of color. The entire atmosphere changed instantly. The polished confidence of the showroom disappeared beneath something colder and more honest. Victoria walked outside toward the truck. After a moment, Ethan and Lily followed. For a while, nobody spoke. Victoria ran her hand slowly along the truck's side panel. Not performatively, like someone confirming a memory was real. I looked for you, she finally said. I sent a letter. I moved, Ethan replied. After Sarah got sick, we needed to be closer to the hospital. Victoria nodded slowly. Then she looked at Lily. Is this your daughter? This is Lily. Hi, Lily said. Hi, Lily. Lily pointed proudly at the truck. Daddy fixes this all the time. Mom used to say it was his other child. Something softened. In Victoria's expression. Your mom sounds funny. She was the funniest, Lily said simply. The past tense hung quietly between them. Ethan cleared his throat. She passed 3 years ago. Victoria looked at him carefully then. Really looked at him. Not just the mechanic. Not just the man from the road. A widower. A father. A man carrying more than anyone inside that showroom had bothered to imagine. You came here to buy a family car, she said softly. Yeah, Ethan answered. Safety ratings. The highway scares me more now than it used to. He didn't explain further. He didn't need to. Victoria understood completely. She stepped aside and made a phone call. Ethan caught fragments. His name. The phrase, family vehicle. The words top of the line. When she returned, she stood in front of him openly. No crossed arms. No performance. I want to give you a car, she said. The best one we have. No charge. Ethan looked at her for a long moment. I don't want charity. Not angry. Just honest. Victoria shook her head immediately. It isn't charity. You saved my life. That's not a metaphor. You pulled me from a burning car. Ethan glanced toward Lily, then at the dealership behind them, then at his truck, at the years of sacrifice hidden inside it, the skipped dinners, the long shifts, the careful budgeting. I appreciate it, he said quietly, but I saved the money. I want to pay for the car myself. Victoria looked at him with something close to admiration. All right, she said. Then come inside. And I promise no one in that building will look at you the way they did this morning. Inside, the dealership had transformed completely. The sales staff moved carefully now. Quietly, Raymond stood near the back office looking like a man waiting for a storm to arrive. Victoria personally walked Ethan and Lily through the showroom. She didn't delegate. She asked real questions. What kind of driving? City and highway. Cargo needs. School gear. Some garage equipment. Does she spill things? Lily answered proudly. Only orange juice. And only on Tuesdays. Victoria laughed softly. Eventually, she led them to the SUV. The premium model. Engineered with the kind of obsessive care reserved for people who believed safety was a moral responsibility. It came in 7 colors. What do you think? Ethan asked Lily. Blueberry. The official color name was Deep Sapphire. But Lily was absolutely right. It looked exactly like blueberries. Ethan rested a hand against the door panel. Tentative. Careful. Like someone touching something they weren't sure they deserved yet. Lily pressed her nose against the rear window and fogged the glass with excitement. After a long silence, Ethan finally said, This is the one. Victoria turned to another manager, a younger woman named Claire. Process it at cost, she said quietly. And make it right. Claire nodded immediately. Later, while paperwork was being prepared, Victoria stood in front of Raymond. She held the video in her hand. Her voice never rose, but every word landed heavily. She explained that dignity for customers was not optional, not conditional, not dependent on the kind of car someone drove into the lot. She informed him that his conduct would be reviewed by Human Resources before Monday, that every employee on the floor would undergo mandatory training, that what happened today was not a misunderstanding, not a gray area, not a customer service mistake. It was a human failure, and it would be treated accordingly. Raymond attempted to interrupt once. Victoria simply said, I'm not finished. And he stopped speaking, because some people don't need volume to establish authority. Later, while Lily explored the SUV's interior features with enormous excitement, Victoria sat beside Ethan near the showroom windows. Can I ask you something? She said. Sure. After the accident, why did you leave? Before the ambulance came? Ethan thought about it carefully. Sarah was waiting for me at home, he said. We had dinner plans. A faint smile touched his face. We didn't have many dinner plans left, as it turned out. But I didn't know that then. I just knew I needed to get home. Victoria was silent for a moment. You had blood all over your hand. Glass cuts. You didn't go to the hospital? I put a bandage on it at home. Sarah made me tea and told me I was dramatic. Victoria smiled softly. She sounds wonderful. She was. There was a comfortable silence after that. Then Victoria spoke again. I looked into your background this morning. Ethan raised an eyebrow. You looked me up? I looked up the truck registration. Your name led to the rest. She paused. You were a mechanical engineer. Carnegie Mellon. Graduated with honors. Lead engineer at Vantage Industries by 2016. Ethan nodded once. You left in 2018. Sarah got sick, he said simply. The job required travel. Vantage offered remote work. Remote wasn't enough. She needed someone physically there. Victoria looked at him differently after that. Not as a victim, not as a charity case. As a man who had knowingly walked away from prestige and money to sit beside the person he loved while she was dying. And afterward, stayed fully present for the daughter she left behind. You've been working as a mechanic ever since. I like the work, Ethan said. The problem is usually right in front of you. You fix it, and you know it's fixed. Not everything works that way. Victoria understood exactly what he meant. You're wasted there, she said before she could stop herself. Ethan shook his head calmly. No, I was exactly where I needed to be. That answer stayed with her. Because very few people in life could say the same thing honestly. A little while later, Lily came racing across the showroom floor, clutching a brochure she had folded into an airplane. "Daddy," she shouted breathlessly. "It has seats that get warm." "Heated seats." Ethan repeated. "Daddy," she whispered dramatically. "I have spent my whole life sitting on regular temperature seats." He laughed quietly. Then he looked at her for a long time. At this bright little person who had survived grief beside him. At the child who still found wonder in heated seats and blueberry-colored cars. Finally, he looked at Victoria. "I've decided something." She waited. "I'll take the SUV. And I'll pay full price." Victoria opened her mouth to protest. But Ethan lifted a hand gently. "Not because I don't appreciate your offer, but because I need Lily to know we earned this." Victoria nodded slowly. "Fair enough." "But," Ethan continued, "there is something else I'd like." She tilted her head. "There's an engineering position open at your company," she said carefully. Ethan blinked. "You were going to ask me about that?" "Yes." "Before all this?" "Yes." Lily immediately whispered, "Daddy, say yes." He looked down at her. It would mean longer hours at first. Lily considered this very seriously. Then she said quietly, "Mom would want you to be happy again." The showroom became very still. Ethan breathed slowly. Then he looked at Victoria. "What's the family support policy?" Victoria almost smiled. "Flexible scheduling. Full family leave. On-site childcare." "How long has that existed?" "Since 2021. He absorbed that silently, then nodded once. "Okay." Victoria smiled fully for the first time that day. Not professionally, personally, like something overdue had finally arrived. The paperwork was completed just after noon. Lily sat beside Ethan eating a biscuit someone had brought from the back office, watching the process with solemn importance. When everything was finished, Victoria walked them to the delivery bay. The deep sapphire SUV gleamed beneath the lights. Untouched. Perfect. Lily walked around it slowly with her, hands clasped behind her back like an inspector. Then she nodded once at Ethan. Very serious. He returned the nod with equal seriousness. But the old truck was still outside. Ethan stood beside it for a long moment afterward, resting a hand against the hood. Victoria joined him quietly. "Are you selling it?" she asked. "No. No hesitation at all. I'm keeping it. It needs work." "I know what it needs," Ethan replied. "I always have." Then he added softly, "It's part of the family." Victoria looked at the truck, at the faded paint, the dented bumper, the mirror once held together with tape. She thought about the storm 10 years earlier, about a man who had stopped on a dangerous road without hesitation, who had saved her life and never once expected anything in return. "I'd like to restore it," she said quietly. "Completely. As a gift." Ethan looked at her thoughtfully, then nodded once. "All right." The restoration took 3 weeks. When the truck finally returned, it sat in Ethan's driveway beneath a gray November sky covered by a cloth sheet. A small note rested on the windshield. "Ready when you are." He uncovered it alone while Lily was at a friend's house. And for a long time, he simply stared. The paint was perfect again. Deep warm red. The engine rebuilt. The mirrors restored. The bumper straightened. The interior reupholstered in the original tan fabric. It looked exactly the way it had looked 20 years earlier when he and Sarah first drove it home laughing because they had negotiated $400 off the price. On the driver's seat sat a small white card, for words written in precise black ink. "Heroes rarely look rich." Ethan read the sentence once. Then again. Carefully, he folded the card and slipped it into the inside pocket of his jacket closest to his chest. 3 months later, on a cold February morning, Ethan drove to his first day at Hale Automotive Group in the deep sapphire SUV. Ethan listened to every word. He was very good at listening. Later that night, after Lily fell asleep, he walked quietly into the garage and rested his hand on the truck's hood. The gesture meant many things now. Grief, memory, continuity, love. He looked up through the garage window at the winter stars burning quietly above him. He thought about Sarah, about the dinner plans they once had, about the way she used to tease him for being dramatic, about how much he still missed her. Then he thought about Lily asleep inside the house, about ordinary Tuesday dinners, about blueberry SUVs, about heated seats, about second chances arriving when you least expected them. He smiled softly, not a large smile, just the kind worn by people who have survived difficult years and somehow arrived somewhere worth arriving at. The world had judged him by the truck he drove because nobody could see the sacrifices inside it. But the people who mattered knew now. Lily knew. And somewhere beneath the wide winter sky, Ethan liked to believe Sarah knew too. That was enough. That had always been enough.